Hey, good morning, and thanks for waking up with me. I'm out here in the Sierras, enjoying a little bit of social distancing. Excuse me while I sit down here on a rock and enjoy the trees here. I like to get out in the country whenever I get a chance to kind of free my mind of the city and all the things that I deal with on a usual basis. And today's one of those days. I'm out here in the Sierras, real close to the California-Nevada border on the east side of the Sierras, and enjoying the Ponderosa Pines and a little bit of background on this very almost unmarked campground area that I'm at. Oop. Gotta be careful what you said around here. Anyway, so yeah, just taking a little bit of fresh air and a little time away from the traffic and the constant phone ringing and all the other things that go on with my day-to-day life. And if you don't do this, I strongly suggest it. It's really good for you. So on my way out here, I was listening to some stuff that I had picked up, and I was listening to a conversation that was actually about something completely unrelated to what I want to talk to you about today. But during the conversation, a comment was made that life is complicated. Don't make it more complicated. And I grabbed that thought out of the conversation, and I wrote it down real quick while I was driving here, because I wanted to bring it up to you today, because I think it's something that all of us can relate to, whether we know it or not at times, right? Because sometimes we get into the constant struggle of survival, of living, of paying the bills, of raising a family, and dealing with kids or coworkers or traffic, or there's all kinds of things that we get involved with, especially if you're part of the city, it's even more so that way. And I realize I live in a little bit of a bubble. I don't live in the country anymore like I did when I was young, but we're in a more rural area than I do right now. Put it that way. It wasn't like this where I lived, but that would have been a good thing. But life can get really complicated for a lot of us. And if it's not traffic, if it's not work, it's so many other things. Even small town people have problems. I remember that. I still have friends back home, and they have their issues. They have their challenges. There are things to deal with. Sometimes there's sickness in the family, or there's an older parent or family member, or there's this or that, or there's jobs or lack of jobs. Especially right now, there's a lot of concern about the economy and what's going to happen, what's coming up, and how's the election is going to turn up. Right now, the time of this recording is the end of August in 2020, and the United States is getting ready to have an election, and what is it? It's like 6 weeks away now, I think. It's really, really close. And so there's a lot of hubbub about that, and a lot of deep divide in our country right now over things like that. And the reality is that, to me anyway, as much as I want to know and respect how other people think and how they feel, and be aware of all that, I still believe that there's a lot of common ground for us. The bottom line is, for the most part, at least everyone I talk to wants to live in this country. And if you don't want to live in this country, there's other countries you can go to. Maybe not right now during COVID; it's really hard to move. But there are a lot of reasons for us to be here, and we all get caught up in complaining about how this group over here, whether if you're a liberal, you complain about the conservatives, or if you're a conservative, you complain about the liberals, or the libertarians, or the Greenpeace people, or the pick your race. There's complaints about that, or it's about so many things, and so much of it is valid, so much of it is important, and I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying here about detracting away from any part of that purpose, because I think there are a lot of meaningful things to be said, and part of this channel is because I think there's a lot for us to learn about each other. There's a lot of things that we just don't understand about each other. There's a lot of things to literally to wake up to discover about other people, especially people that are not like you or myself, or name your group, whatever that is, your identity. And it's not to say that those people are wrong. I don't, it's funny to me how we just want to draw this tribal attitude about you either like me or I hate you, or there's no room for you, and yet the United States is based on exactly that mixture of differences, and and people of all countries all around the world come here to live. And and there are countless people who apply for visas and apply for permission to live here on purpose, and there are people sneaking across the border because they know that living here is just far better than where they're at. And and I can tell you from knowing a few of those people, they want to live here and they want to become citizens because they want to stay. But in some respects, they just want to be here more than our system necessarily processes or allows, or that they understand, or that they can find clear understanding and clear definition from people who make those decisions, and all these things. And and it's like, oh my God, if you can't tell, I'm talking in circles already because it's just so complicated, right? And yet, that's the point. Life is complicated. It doesn't have to be every single thing in our life. If you stop from demanding it to be exactly the way you want, exactly the way you think it should be, exactly for your one personal needs, or even if you want to say it's for your family, or it's because it's your heritage, it's your right, and those people don't belong here. Well, but the same things were said probably about your people, whoever those people are. We have a long history of some sort of prejudice against all kinds of groups, against Italians, against Irish, against all kinds of people, against blacks currently, is a huge issue. We were very demeaning to Native Americans. They were here first. They're the ones, if anyone, belong here. And yet we have, there's countless condemnations and abuses to American Indians here. Native Americans. Sorry, and see, that's the thing. They're not even Indians. They got labeled as Indians because of that error that Columbus made, 400 and some years ago? I could do the math right now, but that's not the point. He thought he landed in India. He thought, so that's why we have the islands off the coast of Florida, or the West Indies. Well, it's not India. It's not the West Indies. It's not at all. That's not what happened. It's this stupid mistake that we just keep repeating and over and over and over because we don't know our history. We don't know how much we're repeating, and here I'm all wound up again, and I'm doing it again. And this is what gets my blood boiling. This is what gets me, wound up and tense. And this is what brings me out here, where it's just that simple. Do you hear that? Life can be a lot more simple than many of us make it out to be. And I'm guilty of that as well. And perhaps you are too, especially if you're still listening to me. We're about 8 minutes into this video, and I've done nothing but rant and be tense and talk about all these things that are going on in life that are wrong or troublesome or worrisome or something like that. But there's so much common ground for so many of us in reality, and I think we could look at life far less complicated if we would take that into account. If you live in the United States, if you're here by choice, you probably want to live here. Let's not lose scope of the fact that you want to live here, and that so do millions of other people want to live here. And for all our wrongs, for all our difficulties, for all the things that could be better, that we could improve upon, for many of us, this is the best country in the world. And that's not to say that there aren't really great countries around the world and other places. If you happen to be watching me from someplace else, I mean, just respect, because you live there for the same reasons. You live there because that's the greatest place for you to live, that you want to be. Unless, of course, you aspire to leave. And if you say, oh, then I hope you have that choice. Because growing up in America, I grew up with a great deal of freedom. More freedoms than a lot of other countries. And that feeling of freedom has given me a sense of privilege to feel that people should live where they want to live. And they should be able to create lives that are beneficial and successful and fruitful, and that they're productive for raising their families, for taking care of themselves, for growing up and becoming old in, and for living and enjoying, and whether it's the work, or it's the beautiful scenery, or it's the environment, or it's the culture, or whatever it all is. And fortunately for us in this country, we've got room for all that. even though we seem to be fighting constantly amongst ourselves about some other culture and putting it down. And I think that's wrong. I think there's a much simpler approach. I don't think it has to be that complicated. I think if you just reach back to what I just said, is that we all want to be here. And the reason we want to be here is because really we all have a lot of common interests. We have a lot of common ground. And we'll get along so much better if we just discover what that common ground really is, you know? So, you know, if you like a particular type of music that's not to my taste, that doesn't mean you're wrong. That's part of your culture. And it's wrong of me to judge that you like that, whatever that is. I'm not a big fan of polka music, for example. But if you're from Europe, especially from that region, that might be just fine. Maybe not your first choice, but maybe you like it. Maybe you enjoy it every now and then because it reminds you of old times, or brings you right back home, or reminds you of your ancestors or whatever. So it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's different and it's not my thing. But that doesn't mean I have to hate it, doesn't mean I have to put it down, doesn't mean I have to be judgmental against it. I don't have to protect myself from polka music, frankly. It's not in my face. It's not getting me arrested. It's not getting me shot at. It's not getting me any of those things. So there's another luxury that I have, which, you know, I'm fortunate that I'm part of that. And yet at the same time, it's a bit of a curse in some respects. You know, I've said before that in many ways in this country right now, it's just not cool to be an old white guy here anymore. There's a lot of judgment against it by a lot of people. And in many ways, I see why, and I think it's rightfully so. But the bottom line is, I'm part of the fabric of this country too, just like you are. And maybe the difference between me and some other people is that I enjoy the variety that you thread into the fabric of this country, and the contributions that you make, the work that you do, the labor that you enjoy, the education that you bring, the diversity to our culture, to our music, to our city streets and sidewalks, and to our scenery, and all these other things that are part of what America is all made up about. And the simplicity of being out here reminds me that at the base of all this, we're all people. We're all human beings. If you're listening and watching to this right now, if you push the buttons to get here, most likely you're a human being. And you have the same needs and wants at the core, the base, that I do. You want to be appreciated. You want to feel loved. You want to find love. You want to take care of people you want to be taken care of. You want a roof over your head, probably. You'd like to know that you're going to eat a meal sometime in the very near future, and have some security about that, and be able to earn a living and take care of yourself. And more than likely, you want all of those things. And that's what makes it simpler. It's just really that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to draw the line between the differences, but really identify how we're similar and find more ways to get along. Life is already complicated. You don't have to make it more complicated. And if you know what I'm saying, if you know what I'm feeling here, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button. And I really hope you'll leave your comments, whether you subscribe or not. Please, I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what your thinking are. If you've got a story to relate to this topic, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to read it. I'm more than happy to respond, or even turn it into another video if with your permission. You guys have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.